My wife's parents knew she was cheating with the vet for months and helped her deceive me. I'm 31, married to Emily, 27, for 4 years. I met her back in college when I was finishing up my business degree, and she was some marketing student. First saw her at this tailgate before the homecoming game. She kept looking over at our group and eventually came over with her friends. She tried the whole accidental bump move, but actually spilled her drink all over my favorite jersey. I just laughed it off and said something cheesy like, "Guess you owe me dinner now." She got all red-faced and flustered, kept saying sorry, and ended up taking my number. We started dating. Those early days were pretty good. We'd stay up late talking about all kinds of stuff. Her growing up with strict religious parents, me losing my dad at 15, and helping mom keep our family farm going. We'd hang out in my truck, looking at stars and making plans. She'd sketch house designs while I talked about farming stuff, which somehow didn't bore her to death. After dating for 2 years, I proposed at her favorite spot by the lake. Spent a lot on a ring that made her cry when she saw it. That night, she told me she wanted to have my kids someday. Fast forward, and I thought I had everything. Solid marriage, my own farm, and a future I worked hard to build. Nothing was handed to me. Every cent came from working 70-hour weeks, taking out loans, making smart investments in equipment and land. I turned 40 acres of crappy soil into a productive operation that made nearly $300,000 last year. And I had no problem giving Emily the life she wanted. When we got married, we both said we wanted the same stuff. Kids, family, the works. But about a year in, Emily started talking about the "let's wait on the kids" thing. Not what I signed up for, but whatever. I wasn't going to force her to become a mom when she's not ready. So instead, I put more energy into our life together. She wanted a rustic dream, so I bought us a small farm outside town. But let me tell you, Emily's idea of rustic was expensive as hell. She wanted some fancy thoroughbred horse that cost 6 figures because regular horses weren't good enough. The thing barely even got ridden, just stood in the pasture looking pretty while I paid $2,000 a month for special feed, vet care, and a trainer. Then she needed imported Brahman cows because normal cows didn't match her aesthetic. I swear to God, she once said our Herefords were too basic. And don't get me started on the trucks. Brand new diesel every year because last year's model wasn't cool enough. I paid for all of it though. As long as she was happy, I figured it was worth it. Now here's where things go to this surprise part of my life. One day, Emily's bestie, Emily, texted me saying we needed to talk. Just that. Need to talk. Important. Can I come by when Emily's not home? I figured she was planning some surprise party for Emily or something. Nope. Emily and I were never super close. She's Emily's friend from high school, always kind of struggled with money. The type who's constantly posting about her hustle on social media, but somehow never gets ahead. She works as a vet tech during the day and bartends weekends at the Rusty Nail to keep her crappy one-bedroom apartment. Recently, she'd been dropping hints about wanting to start a small business, some kind of organic pet food thing. Won't shut up about how regular pet food is basically poison and how her special recipes cured her cat's digestive issues. Even asked me a couple months back if I'd ever consider investing in a startup or if I knew people who might. Was like, maybe, but didn't think much about it. She wasn't exactly what you'd call a go-getter. More like someone who jumps from $1 million idea to the next without actually doing anything. When she showed up at my place, I noticed right away something was off. For one, she texted when she was 5 minutes away to make sure Emily was gone. Came in. She seemed nervous as hell. "You want coffee?" I asked, trying to be normal. No, this won't take long." Then she pulled out this folder, dropped it on the kitchen table, and just said, "You need to see this." At first, I thought it was her business plan or whatever. Maybe some loan application she wanted me to co-sign. But when I opened it, man, inside was basically a documentary of my marriage going down the toilet. Screenshots, photos, videos, hotel receipts, the whole 9 yards. Emily was screwing around with Dr. Jason Cooper, the town vet. Yeah, that same guy charged me $5,000 last year when one of our horses got colic. Then had the balls to send a Christmas card with a picture of his perfect family on it. His wife, Katie, teaches Sunday school to the little kids at church and runs the annual charity auction. Jesus Christ, was all I could say as I flipped through the pages. There were over 70 pages of evidence in that folder. Emily had organized it by date, with little sticky notes explaining what each thing was. Scary efficient. The pictures were graphic. Not going to go into detail. There were timestamps showing them together in hotels when she was supposed to be at her mom's, helping with the church fundraiser. Security cam footage from our own driveway showing his truck arriving 20 minutes after I left for a 3-day trip to look at a combine in Nebraska. Footage of them coming out together 2 days later, holding hands, kissing by his truck. There were screenshots of hundreds of texts between them going back months. Can't wait till he leaves again. Don't worry, baby. He doesn't suspect a thing. Reading that felt like getting kicked in the chest by one of those Brahmin cows she just had to have. This crap had been going on for 8 months, according to the dates. Every time Emily went on a girls' trip, she was with him. Every time I drove to another state to get farm equipment, they'd be at my house, in my bed. The security footage showed his truck at our place overnight at least 11 times while I was away. There was a receipt for a hotel in Memphis from a weekend. She told me she was at a girls' spa retreat with Emily and 2 other friends. Funny thing is, Emily was actually in the Bahamas that weekend. I remember because she wouldn't shut up about it on social media. Posted like 50 beach pictures. So who were these other friends Emily was supposedly with? Nobody, that's who. Just her and Dr. Dick in a suite I was paying for. And here's where things get even more interesting. She's pregnant. Not mine. The vet's. I actually took her to the doctor because I was worried something was seriously wrong. Meanwhile, she's sending this guy selfies with captions like, "Your baby is making me sick today, and can't wait to tell him it's his so he'll stop asking for kids." There was a screenshot of their conversation from about 3 weeks ago. Her, "I think I'm going to have to tell him soon." Starting to show a little. Him, "What are you going to tell him?" Her, "That it's his, obviously. He's been wanting kids forever. He'll be so excited, he won't even do the math." I had to get up and walk outside after reading that part. Stood in the yard for like 10 minutes, just trying not to puke or punch something. The audacity. She was going to pass off another man's kid as mine, all while probably still screwing around with its real dad. When I came back in, Emily was sitting at the table, scrolling through her phone like she hadn't just nuked my entire life. "How long have you known?" I finally asked. She put her phone down. Suspected for about 6 months. Had actual proof for maybe 3. It took a while to gather everything. Why now? Why tell me it all? That's when Emily dropped the real reason she was there. "Look, I know this is messed up," she said, not making eye contact. "But I need to get out of this town. Start fresh. That business idea I told you about. I've got everything planned out. All I need is some capital." I stared at her. "So, you want me to invest in your business?" Seriously. She shook her head fast. "No, not like that. Look, the problem is that Emily knows I took screenshots of our conversations. She caught me scrolling through her phone at girls' night last month when she was in the bathroom. She was texting him right in front of me and went to pee forgetting to lock her phone. I took the chance to look through their messages and took pics with my phone. She came back early and saw me, and she went ballistic. Threatened me. Said if I ever told you or anyone else, she'd make sure I regretted it. Said her dad would make sure I never worked in this county again if I showed anyone. She laughed, but it sounded forced. Guess I'm screwed either way. So I figured I'd at least do one decent thing before I leave. Plus, she's been talking about me to everyone we know, saying I tried to come on to Jason, but he rejected me. People are starting to believe her. I didn't know if I believed her, but the evidence was real enough. The timestamps, the locations, the pictures. It all checked out with times Emily was supposedly elsewhere. When I asked Emily how she even got all this hell of evidence, she told me she used the help of 2 of her friends. They kept tracking Emily and took months to collect everything they could. According to Emily, she just wanted to protect herself. "So what do you want? A loan?" she said, "or an investment? Whatever you want to call it. $50,000. I've got a solid business plan. The organic pet food market is growing like crazy. I just need someone to believe in me." Funny thing is, in that moment, I almost respected her hustle. At least she was upfront about what she wanted, unlike some people. Plus, her bringing me this info, whatever her reasons, was saving me from living a lie even longer, from raising another man's kid thinking it was mine, from wasting more years of my life on someone who clearly thought I was a complete idiot. "Leave your business plan," I told her. "Let me deal with this first. Then we'll talk." She nodded, looking relieved as she left. She turned back. "For what it's worth, I always thought you deserved better than her." Yeah, right. Like I'd fall for that line. But still, I owed her one. And I always pay my debts. I continued scanning the file. They joked about me. Actual jokes about how clueless I was, how I worked so hard while they played, how convenient it was that I traveled so much for farm stuff. Even jokes about the fancy farm equipment I bought that gave them more time alone because I was busy working. I pulled up our bank statements on my laptop and started cross-referencing dates and charges. Found at least $155,000 over the past 8 months that I couldn't account for. Cash withdrawals, random charges at jewelry stores for stuff I'd never seen, weekend at a cabin rental. But wait, it gets better. I found screenshots of Emily's conversations with her parents. Her folks, straight-laced Pastor Robert and his perfect wife, Susan, knew everything and decided to cover it up to maintain their pure image. Pastor Robert isn't just any pastor. He runs First Baptist, the biggest church in our county. Over 500 members. The kind of place where everybody who's anybody goes to be seen on Sundays. He drives a brand new Cadillac Escalade, church-owned, for ministry purposes. His wife, Susan, heads up the women's ministry and about 6 different charity committees. These people have been looking down their noses at everyone in town for the 20-plus years they've been here, acting like they're God's personal representatives on earth. Always talking about moral standards and family values and how the world is going to hell because people don't follow their rules. And guess what? They knew their daughter was cheating on me the whole time. There were texts from Emily to her mom. "Mom, I'm freaking out. Emily knows about Jason and me. What if she tells him?" And the response, "Don't worry, honey. Your father will handle it." Emily's mother needs that recommendation letter for her job at the school board. She won't risk that. Another text from her dad to Emily. "We've spoken with Emily. She understands what's at stake. Just be more careful going forward." These were the same people who had me over for Sunday dinner every week. The same man who called me son. The same woman who asked when we were going to make her a grandmother. All while knowing their daughter was cheating on me and pregnant with another man's child. I scrolled through more messages, and it just got worse. There was a whole conversation about how they'd handle the baby situation. "Pastor Robert, I've been thinking about your situation. I believe the best course is to let him believe the child is his, for now. Later, when things settle with Jason's situation, we can look at other options." Jason mentioned relocating his practice, perhaps to the same area. Then, after an appropriate time, you could file for divorce. Consider it penance for your choices. The alternative is significant damage to our family's standing and my position at the church. So there it was, the full plan. Use me as a cover until Jason could leave his wife. Let me believe I was going to be a father. Let me raise another man's kid for a year or 2. Then she'd divorce me, wait an appropriate time, and end up with the real father. All to protect her dad's reputation and job. I couldn't believe these were the same people who'd welcomed me into their family, who'd prayed over our marriage at our wedding, who'd given us a family Bible as a wedding gift with a handwritten note about honoring your vows before God. How ironic. The more I learned, the more it all made sense. Why Emily's parents were so involved in our lives lately, why they'd stop by unannounced, why they'd call Emily multiple times a day. They weren't being caring in-laws. They were managing their daughter's affair. Every Sunday for 4 years, I sat in those pews listening to Pastor Robert preach about integrity, honesty, and godly living. Donated money to their building fund, volunteered at their events, respected them as my spiritual leaders and family. And the whole time, they were playing me for a fool. Not just me, but everyone. At this point, by the time I finished going through everything, I put everything back in the folder, locked it in my safe. These people thought they were so smart. Well, they were about to learn that farm boys aren't as stupid as they thought. Once I had all the evidence, I didn't mess around. First thing I did was call a divorce lawyer, a guy named Marcus from 3 counties over, so nobody in town would find out yet. I spent about 48 hours just going through my normal routine, acting like nothing was wrong. Partly to get my thoughts together, partly to watch Emily going about her daily lies. It was like watching a play. The best part? I played the fool. I even sat through Sunday dinner at her parents' house the day after finding out. Pastor Robert said grace, asking God to bless this food and this family. The whole scene was almost funny. Finally, on Monday morning, I made the call. Told Emily I had to check on a field that had some irrigation issues. Drove 40 miles to a Starbucks in the next county and called from the parking lot. First thing Marcus asked was if we had a prenup. We didn't. But good news for me. Our state doesn't do community property, which means Emily's only getting what she can prove she contributed to. And since she spent more than she ever earned with her failed online boutiques, that ain't much. Plus, the farm was bought by me, which is protected in divorce. So she'll be left with no house, no land, no money, just a pile of debt and a baby that ain't mine. With infidelity this well documented, Marcus told me, and the pregnancy being provably not yours, we're in an excellent position. The court doesn't look kindly on this kind of deception. He walked me through the whole process, filing temporary orders, discovery, potential settlement. Told me to start gathering financial records, account statements, property deeds, anything showing what I owned before marriage and what was acquired during. I printed bank statements showing withdrawals that matched up with hotel reservations. I even had recordings of her phone calls, all perfectly legal in our one-party consent state. My lawyer was practically high-fiving me over the phone. Said with this much proof, Emily wouldn't get a cent beyond what the law says she has to. In fact, he told me, given the circumstances, we might be able to go after her for fraud. The deliberate misrepresentation of the paternity issue alone could constitute legal fraud, not to mention the misappropriation of marital funds to finance the affair. So she wanted freedom? She could have it, without my bank account funding it. While my lawyer got the paperwork going, I quietly moved most of our liquid assets into accounts only I could access. Not all of it, but I made sure that if Emily suddenly decided to clean out our joint accounts, she wouldn't get much. Then I called a real estate agent to value the house and farm. A guy named Rick who specialized in agricultural properties. He came out, did a walkthrough, checked out the operation, and gave me a number that was about 30% higher than I expected. Apparently, land values in our area had shot up in the last year due to some commercial development nearby. It's all ready to sell the second the divorce goes through. By the time Emily figures out what's happening, I'll be long gone. I also started looking at places about 500 miles away. Found a nice cattle operation in Montana that was going for less than what my place would sell for. Better water rights, more acreage, newer house. Put a few feelers out, made some calls. Nothing definite yet, but good to have options. The worst was when she started dropping hints about the pregnancy, turning down wine at dinner, making comments about feeling nauseous in the morning, buying saltine crackers. All this theater for my benefit. Laying the groundwork to tell me I was going to be a dad. One night, she cuddled up to me on the couch, started talking about our future, how maybe it was time to revisit the kids' conversation. I just sat there, nodding, saying all the right things, while feeling absolutely nothing. Maintaining the act was exhausting, but also oddly satisfying. Every time I caught her in a lie, every fake smile I returned, every knowing nod at her stories, it all just reinforced that I was doing the right thing, that these people deserved what was coming. Marcus called with updates every few days. The paperwork was coming along. He'd found some legal precedents that would help our case. He'd lined up a process server who was experienced with difficult situations. How do you want to handle the service? He asked. We can do it privately, at your home, or somewhere public. Your call. That's when I started thinking about Thanksgiving. Every year, we do this big service at her dad's church, then dinner at her parents' place. Their huge house would be filled with relatives, church members, and close family friends. It would be the perfect stage. Had a long talk with my farm manager, Mike, who'd been with me for 3 years. Solid guy, totally trustworthy. Told him that I might need to be away for a while and asked if he could handle things here if I needed to leave on short notice. Mike just nodded. Whatever you need, boss. Everything will be taken care of. About 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, I met with Emily at a diner 2 towns over. Slid an envelope across the table with a check for $25,000. Half now, half when the dust settles, I told her. Show up for Thanksgiving dinner like nothing's wrong. You're still invited, right? She nodded. Susan called yesterday to confirm. I think they're worried I'll blow everything up if they uninvite me. Good. Just act normal. And make sure you get there early. She nodded. Jason and Katie will be there, too. Susan invited them last month. Even better. Having the vet and his wife there would make it perfect. The whole cast of characters, all in one place. 2 nights before Thanksgiving, I was with my buddy Tom in his garage while he worked on his Harley. We've been friends since high school. He's the only person I'd told about the whole situation. Man, just serve her the papers at home and be done with it. All this isn't necessary, he said. It's not about drama, I told him. It's about consequences. These people think they can do whatever they want and just walk away clean. Well, not this time. Tom just shook his head. Your funeral, man. Just don't expect me to help you hide the bodies. I laughed. No bodies. Just some well-deserved public humiliation. As I drove home that night, I felt calmer than I had in weeks. Everything was in place. The papers were ready. The server was booked. In less than 48 hours, Emily and her family would learn that their perfect little plan had a major flaw. They'd forgotten who they were dealing with. I'm not some city boy who'd curl up and cry when things got tough. I grew up watching crops fail, animals die, equipment break down at the worst possible time. When shit happens on a farm, you don't whine about it. You clean it up and move on. And that's exactly what I was going to do. Now for the fun part, Thanksgiving. This wasn't just any Thanksgiving. In our town, at First Baptist, it's practically a second Christmas. Pastor Robert does this big harvest service in the morning, complete with the church decorated with hay bales, corn stalks, the works. Everyone who's anyone shows up. Then the inner circle gets invited back to the pastor's house for dinner. We're talking 30 to 40 people crammed into their dining room and living room. Susan spends a week cooking and baking, though most of it is actually catered from this upscale place in the city, and she just pretends she made it all. Church elders, big donors, family members, and a few special guests who they're trying to impress or recruit for something. Every year, it's the same routine. We show up early to help set up, which really means me hauling chairs and tables while Emily and her mom gossip in the kitchen. Pastor Robert makes a big show of carving the turkey himself, then gives this long-ass blessing that's basically a second sermon. 3 days before, I confirmed everything with Marcus. The paperwork was ready, multiple copies, one for Emily, one for her parents, and extras, just in case, all neatly organized in separate envelopes. The process server, a guy named Derek, was booked for 2 p.m., right when dinner would be starting. Next, I called Emily to make sure she was still on board. Everyone's still expecting me there, she confirmed. Susan called yesterday to finalize numbers. Said to be there at 1:30. Perfect. Just act normal. And make sure your phone is charged. Why? Are you going to need me to do something? No. But you'll want to record what happens. Trust me. The day before Thanksgiving, Emily was running around like crazy, getting stuff ready, baking pies that we'd pretend she made from scratch. They were from the bakery in town, just transferred to her own pie plates. Can you pick up my dress from the dry cleaner? She asked. And we need to leave by 8 o'clock tomorrow to help Mom set up. No problem, I said, taking the ticket. Anything else we need? She thought for a minute. Maybe some flowers for the centerpiece. Mom always loves when we bring flowers. Sure thing. I headed into town, picked up her dress, and then stopped by the florist. Ordered the most expensive arrangement they had. When the florist asked if I wanted to include a message, I just smiled. No message. The flowers will speak for themselves. That night, I packed a small overnight bag and hid it in my truck. Just enough clothes for a few days and some cash. I'd already booked a room at a motel about 60 miles away. I could hardly sleep that night, like a kid on Christmas Eve. Except instead of presents, I was waiting to deliver a nuclear bomb to my cheating wife and her hypocrite family. Thanksgiving morning, I woke up early and put on my best suit, the one I save for weddings and funerals. Seemed appropriate. Emily spent an extra hour on her hair and makeup, put on that new dress, tight enough to show off the barely there baby bump she thought I hadn't noticed yet. The service at church was the same as every year, packed house. Had to be 600 people crammed in there. Pastor Robert giving his sermon about gratitude and family, looking right at me several times as he talked about the bonds that tie us together and the sacred trust between husband and wife. I had to bite the inside of my cheek to keep from laughing. God sees our hearts, he thundered from the pulpit. He knows our true intentions. There is no hiding from his sight. After the service, there was the usual mingling in the lobby. Handshakes, hugs, small talk. Pastor Robert worked the room like a politician, making sure to touch base with all the important people. Susan flitted around, handing out leftover programs and reminding the special guests about dinner. I spotted Emily standing awkwardly by the coffee table, checking her phone. When she saw me looking, she gave a small nod. All systems go. People started arriving around 1 o'clock. The usual crowd, church elders and their wives, Emily's brother and his family, her grandmother who lived at the fancy retirement home in the city, a couple of cousins, and these special guests. This year, it was a doctor and his wife who had just moved to town and were church shopping, plus some big-shot real estate developer who was thinking of donating land for a new youth center. By 1:45, everyone was there, milling around with drinks, non-alcoholic, of course. Baptists don't drink. At least not where other Baptists can see them. I kept an eye on the door and my phone, waiting for the text from Derek. At 1:55, my phone buzzed. In position. 5 minutes. I took a deep breath and started guiding people toward their seats. Pastor Robert wants to get started, I announced. Everyone find your name cards, please. Emily sat down next to me. She seemed nervous, and I realized she was probably planning to make her pregnancy announcement during dinner. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. Her dad stood at the head of the table. Before we begin this wonderful meal, I'd like to say a few words of thanks. Right on cue, the doorbell rang. Susan started to get up. I'll get it. No, Pastor Robert waved her down. You sit. I'm sure it's just a late arrival. He headed for the door, still wearing his carving apron. I'm sorry, we're in the middle of a family dinner, Pastor Robert said. I'm looking for Rebecca Mitchell, Derek said, clear and professional. There was a pause. Then Pastor Robert called out, his voice strained. Emily? There's someone here for you. The room went quiet. All eyes on Emily as she stood up, confused. She walked to the door, where her father stood with a stone face, Derek holding several envelopes. These are for you. He handed her the largest envelope. And these are for Robert and Susan Johnson. He handed 2 more to Pastor Robert, who took them automatically. You've been served. Have a nice day, Derek said. Emily stood there, frozen. Pastor Robert looked like he'd seen a ghost. I just leaned back and watched as she opened the envelope. The whole room went dead silent as she saw the first page, then looked at me. I just stared back, calm as could be. No yelling, no drama, just facts. She wanted secrets? Well, now nobody had any. Her face went white, then red. What is this? She whispered. I believe the technical term is petition for dissolution of marriage, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Along with evidence of adultery, paternity fraud, and conspiracy to deceive. There's copies for your parents, too, since they're named as co-conspirators. Her dad was already ripping open his envelope, scanning the contents with growing horror. Susan hadn't even opened hers. She was just staring at me like I'd grown a second head. I stood up slowly, making sure I had everyone's attention. Then I pulled out my phone and pulled up one of the videos. It showed Emily and Jason leaving a hotel, kissing in the parking lot. The timestamp was crystal clear. 2 months ago, when she was supposedly at a marketing conference in Cincinnati. I've got about 6 hours of this stuff, I said, turning the phone so everyone could see. Plus the texts, bank records, and, of course, the paternity test I'll be requesting for that baby she's carrying. Spoiler alert, it's not mine. That's when Katie, Jason's wife, stood up fast. What baby? What is he talking about, Jason? Jason looked like he might throw up. I can explain. Explain what? I asked, still calm. Explain how you've been sleeping with my wife. How you're the father of her baby. How her parents helped cover it all up. Pastor Robert finally spoke. This is outrageous. How dare you come into my home and make these accusations? I laughed. Actually laughed. Accusations? You've already got the proof in your hands, Pastor. Page 12 has the text messages where you told Emily to be more careful and discussed how to handle the pregnancy. Pretty detailed for accusations, don't you think? The look on his face was worth every penny I'd spent on this. Emily was flipping through the papers. Where did you get all this? How did you? Then she saw Emily, who was calmly recording everything on her phone. You did this. Emily just shrugged. Guess your dad's threats didn't work as well as you thought. Katie had grabbed Jason's envelope and was reading through it. She started crying. 6 months. You've been doing this for 6 months. She looked up at Emily. Emily couldn't even look at her, just stared at the floor like it might open up and swallow her. The other guests were frozen in place. Some of them were slowly edging toward the door. I let the silence hang there for a minute, then stood up. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone, I said. Emily, I'd say I hope the kid's healthy, but I'd be lying. And for the rest of you, maybe next time don't cover up someone else's mess. Especially you, Pastor. Isn't lying a sin in your book? Then I just walked out. Didn't look back. Didn't need to. I could hear the chaos starting. Katie screaming at Jason, Pastor Robert trying to restore order, Susan crying, someone knocking over a chair. I just kept walking to my truck. By the time I hit the highway, my phone was blowing up. Text from Emily. How could you do this? We need to talk. Please come back. Voicemails from her dad ranging from threatening to pleading. Even one from Susan sobbing so hard I could barely make out the words. I turned my phone off and kept driving. The motel was waiting. And after that, a whole new life, somewhere far away from all this mess. Emily texted me later that night when I briefly turned my phone back on. Holy shit, it was a mess after you left. Jason's wife threw a gravy boat at him. Caught him right in the forehead. LOL. When can I get the other half of my money? Check your account, I replied. Already transferred. Thanks for the show. Worth every penny. She wrote back. Best Thanksgiving ever. I had to agree. As I sat in that dingy motel room, I felt better than I had in months. No more lies, no more pretending. Tomorrow, I'd call Marcus, check on the next steps. Tonight, I'd sleep soundly for the first time in weeks, knowing I'd finally served up the cold dish of revenge those people so richly deserved.